Mm. So tell me a bit about your journey. How did you get into this kind of work? Have you
Yeah.
always been interested in psychology? Have you always been interested in things that are a little bit different, maybe?
So I've always been interested in, say this, how people kind of create their own problems
Ooh,
a
controversial.
little bit, a little bit, yes. And so I've my journey has been, I've been doing a form of Tai Chi for a long time, meditation, those kind of things. But most of my career, I was actually in software. I was a technical writer in the software industry, so writing user guides and instruction manuals, that kind of thing, release notes. And it was very up here. And the that journey, I think I'd got to the point where I really, really, really needed to be doing stuff that was more creative, that was more heart centered. I was sick of being stuck in front of a computer. I wanted to be with people more. My experience with going on Tai Chi retreats had been really powerful.
Mm.
And so I kind of now, I've got this contrast. I've got this contrast of my everyday life and then this sense of well-being that came from a completely different way of living. But then how do you change your everyday life when, because that's completely different than being with 200 people who are all on the same wavelength and you're all doing the same thing and you're all helping out. And so there was a real kind of, what makes us happy, what makes us feel good, and why am I not feeling good in my everyday life? And but I was at the same time, you've got your job, your career is like, how do you get out of that? And for the first time, I think in previous phases of my life, I'd always had a dream. It's like, I want to go here, I want to do this, I want to, and then you can make it happen. But I was very much, I don't want to be here, but I didn't know where I wanted to go next.
Almost like that kind of stuckness that you describe,
Exactly.
which makes sense as to why
Yeah,
it's an area that you're
exactly.
interested in. Yeah.
Yeah. I was very, very stuck. And I'd kind of gone, okay, well, and the way it was manifesting was I'd kind of be driving into work and I'd be crying on the way to work. That's always a bad sign. You're kind of on this downward spiral when that's happening. And I'd get to work and I'd just look at the computer and be like, it literally felt like my arms were too heavy to come up and do anything. And I was like, the feeling of what am I, just more of the same. And then the projecting it forward, so the subconscious mind was projecting that forward. This is it for the rest of your life. You've got 15-20 more years of career in front of you and it's just going to be this every single day. And and I just got to the point, I'd been doing, okay, well, I'll trying to motivate myself and kind of self-help things around procrastination and all these kind of stuff. And at the end of the day, I just like, I and literally, I think, I don't know whether I was in the car or I can't remember exactly the circumstances, but out loud, I can't do this anymore and I need help.
Wow.
And then, and I, because I've got enough from my background with doing the Tai Chi, I just let that go. And then I just left it. And within a couple of days, I got, I work on a science park in Cambridge and we have a kind of a central, there's lots and lots of companies there, but there's kind of like a central place that does cafes and organises, has meeting rooms and stuff. And they were organising a health and wellbeing week, and they had various things on. The NHS were coming to do blood pressure and all those kind of things, and different talks. And there was somebody in there who was giving a talk, and I read the description of the talk, and I went, "That's what I need." And she was a hypnotherapist who had trained with Trevor, and she had other things in her background as well. But basically, I spoke to her and I booked up to go, and I did 6 sessions with her, which were incredibly powerful. And it was all about, yes, I was in a job that I was no longer enjoying, and yes, I didn't really know what I wanted to do next. But the stuckness that there's nothing I can do was the story that wasn't true.
And I hear that so much, like not always literally, but I I work in mental health. So I teach mindfulness and I'm a psychotherapist and I do mental health groups and there's often either overtly or more subtly this idea that a lot of my clients have, which is I don't have any agency, things can't be any different to what they are,
Yeah,
and I want to shake people because it's not true.
it isn't true. And this is where our thinking brain is a very powerful computer, but it actually has quite limited powers. So we've got a brain that's excellent at pattern matching, really to the extent of seeing Jesus's face in a piece of toast. We're very good at, and certain things we're extremely good with pattern matching. And one of the things that's happening in our minds at any given point is we are matching the current situation to previous situations. And so where it's kind of like, yeah, this is normal, don't worry about it. You're not really paying attention, you don't need to pay attention. But if something suddenly flies across the windscreen when you're driving, suddenly then you're like, oh, okay, got full focus. But the pattern matching happens, and then the reasoning we've got is, yes, this is like something else I've seen, or this is not like something else I've seen. And then we've got cause and effect. This causes that. And that's where, and because our thoughts, we believe them, we don't even question them, we don't hear them a lot of the time. But that thought of this situation means or causes how you are feeling, and you can't change that situation.
Yeah,
That underlying thought
it's
process is
it's
not true.
a lot of the people I work with. It's this situation is because I'm stupid.
Yes.
This situation is because I made bad choices, or this situation is one of the things. I don't know what your thoughts is about this. Is when people get caught up in my anxiety.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's a particular is it a peeve? Yeah, it's a bit of a peeve because I think people get so caught up and so over-identified with my anxiety that it it becomes an uncomfortable comfort blanket. And would you be able to work with that?
Yeah. I think we we create these situations, but then what happens again, the mind is like, this is horrible, but I know it. And I don't know what's the other side of it. That's really scary. So it's better to stay here with what I do know. And I think with any therapy, the first step is, do you really want it to change? And people say, yes, of course I want it to change. And we've got questions that we can ask that kind of go a bit deeper into that. What will you gain if it changes? What will you lose if it changes? Those kind of questions, you can start to pull out uh, the fears and the comfort. It's like, well, it's safe. I'll lose safety, or I'll gain. So the asking kind of slightly reverse psychology questions can be really helpful at getting to do you want to change? Um, and then even just having conversations about it, bringing that out into the open, the realizing that you might be holding on to things a little bit for your own benefit.
Mm.
Um, and that can be a hard pill to swallow because, of course, why would I want to feel like this? But we do give ourselves reasons to hold on to things. And then the other part of that is, so you said, like, I'm stupid, so this situation, so I'd made bad choices, and so now I'm in this situation, which means I can't change it because and then you go back around the same loop. Um, there's a lot of taking the responsibility is a big step. So uh, the there is an attachment to that way of thinking that you've got to kind of give them space to recognize and to let go of, to think a different way. But because if you take that away, if it's no longer that reason, then you can get a little bit of cognitive dissonance, that if that's not true, if that thought loop isn't true, their world goes wobbly. So going in and starting to have those conversations, you kind of have to be a bit sensitive to where they're holding on, what they're holding on to, and how much of a change it can be, that if you start to say what's in you, so let's not worry about what's out of your control, what's in your control. And oh, well, I can't do this, is like, okay, yeah, okay, so you right now you think you can't do this yet,
Even that's
but
powerful, isn't it? Just
yeah,
changing it from you can't.
those little words, yeah. And the my anxiety, those kind of words, just that little slight reframes in the conversation, which is, okay, so you have sensations which you're calling anxiety.
Yeah.
Tell me about the sensations.
Yes.
And then sort of trying to move a little bit away from the labels.
Let's get the light to come back on. There we go.
Yeah, I have to move around to get the light to come back on.
Yeah, it's movement sensitive, and so when I'm sitting, it doesn't. I don't move enough, and it'll just go off again. But that's okay.
There we go.
So,
Yeah, so there's lots of ways of working with those things, but yeah, there is the biggest challenge is always, oh yeah, sure, I want to change, but then no, not necessarily.
so you had those 6 sessions. You'd gone in feeling stuck. What happened? What happened by the end of those 6 sessions?
I resigned from my job.
Wow.
So the first thing that so we did, it takes a couple of sessions, I think, for you to get used to the kind of the process. So it's kind of around the third one. We had imagine yourself going into work and you're kind of at your desk and you're about to sit and do your work. So and then what's going on in you? What's the feeling? What's the thought? And I was just like, there's no joy here. And then the rest of that session became a conversation around, again, it was I thought I was stuck. And just having somebody who doesn't believe that you're stuck and having a conversation around, well, what are the things that you could do? And the first thing I did was I kind of had a conversation with my partner, and it was, I really need a break. And he's like, well, we're not going to starve. I was very, very lucky that there were a few things that were in place that meant it was not going to be a problem for me to take a bit of a break. So I had about 6 months off work, and I actually went back got a job with another company because I wanted to reduce my hours. So that was one thing, that feeling of, you're getting up before you're ready to wake up, and you've got to get out of the house before you're ready to leave the house, and then you seem to be in the office all day, and then you get home and you're stuck in traffic for an hour, and then you get home and then it's like just exhaustion. So the first thing I needed to do was I just kind of like, okay, take a break, just rest, get another job, but with a slightly shorter working day. And then from there I could start to and during that period it was a case of, right, I don't quite know what I want to do, so I'll explore some options. And I did a bunch of different things. I went on an extra long Tai Chi retreat. I kind of did some various one-day introductory courses for different things. I was looking at coaching and counselling and these different things. And in the end, I went back to my hypnotherapist and I said, what course did you do? Because I enjoyed that process. So just for fun, I'll do this. And it was about halfway through that course. And people were like, yeah, you really should do this. So it wasn't my intention when I started to become a therapist. It was more just for the sheer interest of how it all worked. Yeah.
Brilliant.